it is now 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock, and we have something. I think this conversation shows that we could use something to heal our souls a little this morning. And guess what? We have it. We have it from Adria Benjamin.
Good morning, everybody. I thought I would play an excerpt of a piece by Ernst Bloch, this great Swiss-American composer who was born in 1880. He died in the late 1950s, and
Can I just ask everybody to mute yourselves, please?
I'm sure those of you in the
mute yourselves.
Those of you in the chorus know his Sacred Service and many of his other choral compositions. Wonderful composer, very beloved by violists because he wrote such great music for viola. And this is a 2-minute excerpt of his meditation for viola. And I have to admit that there is a piano part, but the music is so great that it stands alone on its own. I've actually played this with Joyce, and it's fantastic. But I think you'll agree with me that the language of it stands on its own, and maybe Cantor Nimi at some point can discuss the musical prayer modes that are used, and this language will sound very familiar to you. When I looked it up, it was called the Misha Barak mode, but it basically is a familiar minor scale sound that I think you'll all recognize.
Wow. Adria, you are such a blessing to all of us and to this class and to our studying.
This is my lifeline here, folks.
Yeah.
I can't wait for 10 o'clock every morning.
Me too.
To see everybody, and learn from everybody. It's amazing.
It is amazing, and we are all getting to learn from you, and to be fed by you is so moving. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And let me go back to gallery view now. So hold on just a second. So I just want to say a moment about where we are in the Jewish cycle. Today is the 17th of Tammuz, the month of Tammuz, which is my birth month in the Jewish calendar. So I always feel a little close to the month of Tammuz. It is, the 17th is the beginning of the 3-week period that leads us into Tisha B'Av. And the 17th of Tammuz is a minor fast day in the Jewish calendar, which means we distinguish fast days in Judaism. There are days which are fasts from dawn to dusk, and days that are fast days for the 25 hours from sunset to post sunset, like Yom Kippur. Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur are two major fast days in the Jewish calendar. And the 17th of Tammuz is called a minor fast day because we fast, for those who choose to fast, only from dawn to dusk. So it's called a minor fast day. But what does it mark? And you'll see some differences that we will include, by the way, in our Friday night services. It's a period of mourning that leads us into Tisha B'Av that escalates in intensity. So the 3 weeks altogether are called the 3 weeks of mourning. And the 9 days from the beginning of the month of Av to Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th of Av, is a more intensive period. So it kind of intensifies. 3 weeks are one level of mourning. The 9 days of Av are another level. And the day before the 9th of Av, the 7th of Av, the 8th of Av, I'm bad at math. The 8th of Av is the day before the 9th of Av, right? Is a little more intense. And then the most intense, of course, is this full day of mourning for Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which falls this year. Oh, yeah, let's have my calendar. Hold on. Can't find my calendar. All right. It falls in 3 weeks from now. Okay. And we mark it at CBST and all over the world by the reading of the Book of Lamentations, Eicha. And there's special piyutim, keynote they're called, that are recited. And we typically, when we were in person, we did it on the floor with candles, chairs for people who didn't feel comfortable sitting on the floor in the evening of that night. So we'll be doing something again this year, of course, on Zoom. So look out for that. But so what is this thing, this 3 weeks before? And it marks what I think is a fascinating concept. It marks when so Tisha B'Av marks the destruction of the first and second temple, along with other tragedies throughout Jewish history. But the 17th of Tammuz marks when the north wall of Jerusalem was broken by the conquering Romans or Babylonians, depending which temple we're talking about. But mostly the conquering would come in from the north, because if anybody knows the geography of Jerusalem, the south of where the temple was and where the city was is a steep hill, right? That's where the Levites would be singing antiphonally the Psalms as the pilgrims would come up. But from the north, it's pretty flat. So every time Jerusalem has been conquered, they come in from the north because it's a lot easier to come with an army on a flat, obviously. So that's when the walls were breached from the north. And so the inevitable was going to happen. But there was a period between the first breach in the wall and the complete destruction. And why is that important? Well, because I think it's something we all know. There's a sense of doom when you start to see the things around us crumble that had been protecting us. There's a sense of doom that I think all of us feel in these years of Trump in a way that many of us who are American born had not experienced before, which was a sense of doom as the walls that had protected us start to crumble. The things that had been the guardrails, we're calling them a lot, how they fall down. And there's a sense of, oh my God, this could lead to complete destruction. Yeah, we've experienced it so many times in these last 3.5 years that I think it's worth just acknowledging that on the 17th of Tammuz. We pray that the result won't be the same. But this is a period in our time where we don't typically do weddings. It's considered, if we have any formerly Orthodox or very traditional Jews on the call, they'll know it's considered a dangerous time in Judaism. There's no other time in the year like this where a traditional Jew won't take an airplane, won't travel, won't do things that are physically a little at risk because there's a sense that dangerous things will happen and will turn bad. I don't know if anybody is is in the class who grew up with that or is familiar with that tradition. But if you talk to a traditional Jew, you'll know that not only do they not do weddings, which is true also of the Omer period, and we at CBST don't do weddings either during this time, but they won't do anything that's considered risky because it's considered a time where the stars are aligned in such a way to make things particularly dangerous. So we're taught in our tradition. Do we have anybody here who comes from that background? Shari and Debbie might, if they're on the call. Ora, do you? So there's a sense that if there's a risky thing to do, don't do it during these 3 weeks. This is not a time to take physical risk in particular, but all risks in general. And boy, does that say a lot to us today, huh? I mean, we're in such a moment of great risk. So this starts this 3-week period of mourning. The haftarot change every Shabbat morning for these 3 weeks. They're called in English the haftarot of rebuke. And then after Tisha B'Av, we chant the haftarot of consolation. But starting Friday night, we will be singing Lecha Dodi, which is the celebratory song of welcoming Shabbat, to a melody of one of the keynote of Tisha B'Av called Elit Zion, which has honestly a very beautiful melody. And we sing Lecha Dodi to that melody as a way of marking this is a time of some subdued it's a subdued time. How's that? A subdued time. And so, but it's Elit Zion. I love it very much. I actually look forward to hearing it every Friday night. So for the 3 weeks leading into Tisha B'Av, you'll hear Lecha Dodi sung to this special melody. And if you go to shul on Shabbat morning, we do a special haftarah. And there are other liturgical changes, but I just wanted everybody to be aware of the day we are in today. On Tisha B'Av itself, we're taught not to study Torah. By the way, the other day we're not supposed to study Torah at all is Christmas, because so much harm has been done to Jews in the name of Jesus. So Orthodox Jews on Christmas, it's the day where gambling is allowed and card games are allowed. But on Tisha B'Av, we're taught not to study Torah because that's pleasurable, and we're not supposed to experience pleasure. But we can study texts of destruction or of lament. So in all of your Hebrew classes, if you're taking any Hebrew classes, and in our Psalms class, we'll focus on that aspect. So classes will happen on Tisha B'Av, but they will be affected by what we'll study. Okay? So let's move back into our Psalm 9, which has lament in it. So it's totally appropriate for this 17th of Tammuz day. We're going to jump to, I want to move through the Hebrew and this basic translation. What did we get up to yesterday? 6 or 7? I think we did 7, right?
Let's see.
I think we're up to 8.
No. 5.
5, really? Okay,
No.
we just finished 5.
6.
Okay, is Yael here with us?
I'm
We
here.
finished 5.
Oh, we finished 5, okay. See, my memory is so bad. All right,
Does
Yael,
everyone
would
see
you
this?
read us?
Everyone sees it's okay? Just get a few hands up. Okay, good.
6,
You want me to read 6?
please.
גערת גויים, איבדת רשע, שמם מחית לעולם ועד.
You blast the nations, you destroy the wicked, you blot out their name forever. So a couple of words just about the Hebrew here. Again, starting with a verb, but here we have goyim. Remember, we encountered there are 2 words for nations that in Hebrew, and we see them over and over again in Psalms. One is goyim. Remember, modern Hebrew puts the emphasis on the final syllable, and Yiddish and English put the emphasis on the first syllable. That's why Yiddish speakers say this word is goyim, and Yael says the word is goyim. Sounds like it's a completely different word because goyim sounds like one thing. But that's why Yiddish, Germanic languages, which English is one, Yiddish is one, our emphasis is on the first syllable. So we would say goyim, or Yiddish says goyim. This is a word in Yiddish. And that's, many of us are familiar with goyim, meaning non-Jews, often used derogatory. In Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, it also means non-Jews, but it means kind of the nations or peoples. Goy is a nation or people. Ibadata. Now here's we have, and where's the etnachta in Shimam? So this is quite a heavy phrase here. So ibadata, ibed is to destroy, to wipe out the nations. Ga'arta, you blast, you power away the goyim, and you destroy Rasha. We've encountered Rasha before, and we'll talk about this in other places. What are all the different words for wicked or evil or bad? Rasha, Ra, are two of them. So Rasha, which means evil or bad. And remember in Purim, we use Rasha a lot about Haman. We call Haman Rasha a lot. And so Shimam, you destroy, completely destroy. So you wipe out the people, these nations, and you wipe out bad people. Machita le'olam va'ed, blot out their name forever and ever. Now let's talk about the word machita a second. Yael, what would you say in modern Hebrew that is?
I don't know that we use it in this way, but we certainly say Yimach Shemo. That's
Right.
something that people say, for example, about Hitler, when we want to just say, let's wipe the name from this world. So Yimach Shemo, that's a very common way to talk about.
So you see, here is some of the origin of that phrase.
Yeah.
Now, this goes back to the question that I've raised about the use of the word name. Right? So what does it mean? We've talked about, and we'll see this throughout this psalm and of course in others, that name is a very, 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 very powerful thing. And we're told that people, human beings, were able to name some of the creatures. We talk about God's, right? We talk about praising God's name, not just praising God. And here we talk about not just wiping out evil people, but wiping out their name. Which is, let's hold that. I just want you to really see that. And exactly this Yimach Shemo, which we use for all the bad, Hitler, whenever somebody, if you have to use somebody's name, in Judaism, it feels like it's giving them a place in the universe, kavod, you're creating space for them. So even if you have to refer to them, like Harry Potter says, the one who shall not be named, because a name gives something power. So we say a version of this phrase that we say that when we talk about their name, that you blot out machita, shmam machita le'olam va'ed. The ultimate is for somebody who is so evil that their name is blotted out forever. We'll come back to this over and over again. And le'olam. All right, kita aleph, folks. You see that lamed in the beginning of le'olam. I can't, I don't know if Harold, you can.
What would you like me to do? Okay.
Just show that lamed in olam. So olam literally means world, right? Olam is a world. Hebrew has a wonderful phrase that we don't even hear it for those who know Hebrew, that le'olam va'ed is a phrase, it's an idiom that means forever. But literally, it's le is the lamed in front of le'olam, which means to or for or toward. It has a very broad le'olam va'ed, to the world and on, or to the world and beyond. So it's a wonderful phrase for forever. Of course, it does mean forever, but the Hebrew has such texture to it. So it means you should blot out their name for this world and beyond this world, whatever that might be. But translating it as forever is correct. That is our way we would say it in English, because we wouldn't say to this world and forever. But the Hebrew has a very, and I'm sure Yael and other Hebrew speakers don't even think about le'olam va'ed anymore. It just means forever. We sing it, we say it. It's just, but when you see the words le'olam, olam means world. And that's important because in Jewish thought, we talk about olam hazeh, which means this world, our lifetime, and olam haba, the world to come, which we don't know what that's like. So for this to say le'olam va'ed means all those worlds, this world, hazeh, and haba. Okay, so now 7.
האויב, תמו חרבות לנצח וערים נטשת, אבד זכרם המה.
The enemy, so oyev is one of the words for enemy. So we can make a list of the words for bad people. Rasha, Ra, oyev, sorim. So here is oyev, which we've come across before, and it'll be repeated. The enemy is now, this is starting with a noun. So that means there's a kind of an emphasis on the word. So the enemy, then there's that one of those pauses that we learned about. So the enemy, tamu charavot, is no more. Ruins, charavot is, in Yiddish, by the way, the word for the Holocaust is chorban, which is from this same shorash. So a Yiddish speaker doesn't use the word Shoah to talk about the Holocaust. A Yiddish speaker uses the word chorban. Shoah is only in Hebrew for a Hebrew speaker. But I don't know, Yael, did you grow up hearing chorban from your parents or no? They
No.
only would use Shoah?
Yeah, we did not speak Yiddish at home.
Yeah, but sometimes that word has such resonance. So, and it also means cherev. So a cherev, like lo yisagoy al goy cherev. Cherev is a sword. Or so it's kind of violence, destruction. It has a lot of that feeling to it. So the enemy, tamu charavot lanetzach, is no more. Tamu charavot lanetzach ve'arim natashta. You have torn down their cities. Arim, like Ir David, which I've talked about, is the city of David. Arim is the plural of a city. Ir David is the city of David. Arim, you have torn down their cities. Now, here we come again. Avad.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to make it bigger and it's.
Yeah, sorry, so I don't have to poke my face into it.
Yeah.
Avad zich, yeah, because I can't read the vowels in this size.
I know. Maybe you should take out your book to.
Yeah, I've got my book. Okay, it's okay. I've got my book here.
Avad.
I've got my text now. So this doesn't say their very names are lost. The translation here is a little different because, as I said, names are very important, but there's a reason the translator said names. Here it says their memory is lost. Zayin Chaf Reish is remembered like Yizkor is to remember, like Zichrono Livracha, their memory, his memory be for a blessing. Zichram Hema, their very memory is lost.
Rabbi,
So
there's a grammatical point that was asked about shamam and ikram. What does that mem sofit mean?
It means it's plural third person, their. So it means their memory is lost or their names are lost.
Okay.
So that the suffix indicates, the possessive. So mine, he, his, hers, their, ours, etc. So zichram, the final mem, is means their. So in this case, zichram means their memory is no more. Shamam is their names. Why it's zichram and not otherwise? There are some other questions about it, but we won't go into there. But zichram just means their memory. Okay? 8.
ואדוני לעולם ישב, ואדוני לעולם ישב, כונן למשפט כסאו.
So the vav that begins this verse, this pasuk, is the disjunctive. It's not a conjunctive, even though it's a vav, which an Israeli would quickly read as and, or, it's not. This is why the vav in biblical Hebrew has a much broader, you can't jump to conclusions that it means and, which is all it means in modern Hebrew. In biblical Hebrew, it can mean rather, or instead, or but. And here the translation but is, I think, correct, or it could be rather. So it's a disjunctive, in other words. It's contrasting all of these previous psukim to Yud He Vav He. Vi Yud Vav He, what is the word? What's forever here? Le'olam. Again, that word we saw above is for the world. So for the world, Yeshev. Yeshev, the same word we've had this before in the Psalm 1, is for sit. The word yeshiva is from the same shoresh, which is a school where people sit a lot. So yeshiva, but moshav, which is a settlement. A yishuv is a settlement. These are all from the same shoresh, to sit or to live. It has a sense of being, grounded. So, Adonai le'olam yeshev. So, but the Lord here is abides forever. And there would be the comma. Konen lamishpat kiso. He has set up, konen is established, lamishpat is a judgment or judging or court, kiso, his throne or his seat. 9.
The force of that lamed, Rabbi?
What?
That lamed, le mishpat, rather than just mishpat?
Because it's his set up, as this translation, for judgment.
Okay.
So for justice or for judgment, because it's a sense of he's a shofet, a judge.
Got it.
So and that's why beta, so a shofet, which is the same shoresh, is a judge. Mishpat is beta mishpat is a court in modern Hebrew.
Mishpat is also a sentence, both as a grammatical thing, but also a sentence that is given to a person who is judged.
Right.
והוא ישפוט תבל בצדק, ידין לאומים במישרים.
So here we have that shoresh again, shin, pei, tet. And he, it is he, again, so the vav here has an emphatic sense, not just and that's why this translator says it is. So it's to emphasize, again, contrasting with the earlier enemies who will not live forever. And he, yishpot, so there's the shin, pei, taf, tet, shin, shin, pei, tet, shoresh. He will, this is a verb now. Up there it was a noun. Mishpat is a noun. Whenever there's a mem before, in the beginning of that shoresh, a mem usually indicates it's become a noun. V'hu yishpot, he will judge, b'tzedek, in righteousness. Yadin, the word is din, like dayan, which is din verachamim. This is law or judgment. Yadin, a dayan is a judge also. A shofet is a judge, and a dayan is a judge. Yadin, he will judge leumim, the peoples. So that, remember we said there are two words for people, goyim and amim, or leumim b'meisharim, with yashar. The shoresh of b'meisharim is yud, shin, resh, yashar, which means straight. But in CBST's Siddur, I chose not to translate it as straight because I thought that wouldn't be so great for our synagogue, because it means straight in the sense of, on the mark, righteous. So I translated it differently, and it's this word is found in Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat. I forgot how I translated it, but I didn't use the word straight. But here is rules the peoples with equity. 10.
Can I also mention,
Sure.
it says in 9, Vehu yishpot tevel. Tevel is another word for world. So we
Yes.
have olam earlier, and here we have tevel.
Perfect. Thank you for saying that. And we say tevel, right? Because we say at the end of Oseh Shalom, we say v'kol yoshvei tevel, right? So that's using that word there. Thank you.
And Rabbi, if I'm correct, this is am, which is the root here, but am becomes umim in this one of those things where the vowels are changing depending on the construction, correct?
No,
Yeah,
that's
I didn't get
a
into this.
word.
There's also an with an ayin.
That's it.
There's
Okay.
an I didn't get into that because I'm going to avoid, there's a little complexity there, but there's an umim, which was and there's with a aleph, but there's amim with an ayin. So there's some conflation in different, but yeah, so they're actually kind of different words, but some people don't think they're actually different words, but yeah. Some people see in modern Hebrew, I think it's the word for national, like nation, right? Yeah, so you'd say, how do you say?
Leumi.
Leumi,
National
like
Bank,
Bank
Leumi?
Leumi.
Bank Leumi, Sarah just said that,
Yeah,
yes.
Bank Leumi. Yep.
Sorry, the chat is,
Oh, should I pause? I was gonna try and let's do 10 and then we'll pause, okay?
okay.
Let's get
ויהי
through 10.
אדוני משגב לדך, משגב לעיתות בצרה.
So again, the Vav, you see this pattern for these verses. The Vav is a way of emphasizing all this about the bad guys up above, but this is in distinction or in contrast, or let me make sure you're noticing what makes Yud He Vav He, what makes the power in the universe for good. And now these are all different descriptions. Yehi, God will be a haven, a location for the dach, the pressed down, or the literally oppressed, but the word like the word oppressed means pushed down, dach means push down or something like that. Leitot is a word for times, 8, like lakol zman va'et. In there is a season for everything, or there is a time for everything. In Kohelet, this is the same word, 8. Ayin tet is a word for times or season. Tough, sorry, tough, right. Ayin tough is a season or times, not times on a clock, like not that kind of time, but time in a year or times of life, or like really like lakol zaman va'et. There is a season for everything, but it can't be used for times of on a clock. But Sarah is the singular of tsaris. We all know the Yiddish word tsaris. Sarah is the singular of tsaris. So for troubles. Okay, so let's pause now and see if there are questions or comments.
Okay.
We're doing great moving through this, and I hope you're getting
Hands
some
up
of the feel
time.
of this.
Robin Baslow has her hand up. Robin, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question.
That's a good idea. Okay, so I'm confused about Hashem, the one whose name we can't say, but also the villains is also the name that we don't say. So can we just speak a little bit about that?
Well, that's an interesting point. It's not that Hashem doesn't have a name. It's just this particular name is so holy, it's only said infrequently, but we know what the name is. I mean, not in our generation, and we know there are names. So name here has a power of kind of eternal existence. The power of naming something is enormous. What this is saying to us, I think, is the contrast between the power of the good sort of in the universe will be olam va'ed, will be in this world and beyond. The powers of evil we will not even remember their names. That's how much they will disappear. So it's trying to contrast, I think, something that's impermanent and something that's permanent. It's not that God doesn't have a name. It's that this particular name is so holy, we protect it. We treasure it so much. We don't say it that often, but we know what the name is.
Rabbi, we have a question here. What olam and lit olam va'ed, is one just intensifying, or is there a different meaning?
Yes, it's intensified, but you could say olam to mean forever also, but olam va'ed is a little bit of an intensification.
Forever and ever, not just forever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of.
Okay, and the tevel, where was the question here? The difference between olam, eretz, and tevel.
Okay, so olam means world, but not nations or peoples. It means world in a much bigger sense. Eretz, what was the other one?
Tevel.
Eretz and Tevel? That's an interesting question. Eretz really is about land. It's not, I mean, we do call it Eretz Yisrael, but Eretz really, I'd have to really think about it, think it through. And I'd really have to check biblically how Eretz gets used. That's interesting. Let me write that down. That I'd really have to look up, because I'm not sure how if Eretz gets used ever, that's not just really meaning the land, physical land. I suspect it only means land. And Tevel has a sense of more like olam, a broader word.
All right. I did
We would
find
have to look that up to check
I did
that.
find your translation,
That's
Rabbi.
my instinct. That's my instinct, but not based on actual knowledge.
Rabbi, if you're talking about Luhagid ki yashar Adonai,
Yes.
you translated it as that they may ever declare the eternal is always just.
There you
My
go.
rock was
I
ever.
avoided straight. Yeah, very specifically in that translation.
And Lisa Brown has a question.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
And just in terms of the remembrance, I always think about this with the Holocaust. So if we're gonna blot out somebody's name, what about their deeds? And I always resonate with this about how much focus we put on remembering the Holocaust. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I get conflicted there.
Well, it's a good point. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't. So I keep remembering and thinking about this. The chant has been say their names. About the Black trans women who have been murdered, or the Black men who have been killed by the police. One of the chants of all these protesters, say their names, say their names. And I think there's power, and I think part of the pain of the Holocaust for so many is that there's so many whose names are gone. Of the 6 million or so Jews we know who were murdered, we don't know all of the names of everybody. Even if you look in the Hall of Names in Yad Vashem, we don't have the names for all 6 million. So the question is about the evil people. And you've heard me say, I'm sure many times, that it's bad that more people can name concentration camp names than they can Yiddish writers, or great cultural moments of Jewish life, but we can name what the Nazis did. So no, I don't think we should forget what people have done. There's a power, though, in their names not having a legacy to them. And we can see how the followers of Hitler, etc., they continue to want that name to be very, very visible. I don't think it's about history as much as it's about something even bigger than that, spiritually. That we don't want to even say their name. We don't even want Hitler to be remembered. But there is a paradox there. I get it. I'm not saying we shouldn't remember them, but I think it's saying here there's a contrast that in the millions and billions of years of history, maybe we won't even remember Hitler. I don't know. I'll have to think about what I think about that too. It's a good question.
So we have an addition when you're going through Eretz and Tevel and Olam to add Adama as one of those words that we see referring in
Adama definitely is dirt or earth. It's the earth itself. It's really, Eretz is like is not just the earth itself, but it's more like land, or I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know. Modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew might be very different on this.
Shep has his hand up. Or did Yael answer the question?
Well, Yael kind of answered, but I have a question going back to, I missed the first few classes. Rabbi, it's called the Book of Tehillim. How come it's never referred to as Tehillim? It's Mizmor LaDavid. Why is the word Psalm never used in the Psalms?
So Shep, we did spend a lot of time on this.
I missed it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll figure out which class to listen to, but on the simple note,
Yeah.
Mizmor, which means the Greek translation of is where we get the word psalm, and it's called, and so Sefer Tehillim is the Hebrew word, but it's from the Septuagint, from the Greek that we psalm.
Okay.
So
Thank
a lot
you.
of our English words for the Bible are actually via the Greek.
Is that right?
Shep, I'd be glad to chat with you about that offline if it would be
We
helpful.
did
Okay,
spend a lot of time
that'd
on
be great. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Harold.
Ben Shaffron.
The concept of erasing the name actually goes back to the Torah about Amalek. And the irony is that we read it every year, so the name is never forgotten.
Right, and in Purim, we blot it out by making a lot of noise, but we actually read it out loud. So maybe that is the answer to the question, that we have to do both. We have to remember and we have to blot it out. And that's the paradox of living with tragedy and tragic history.
And I think that when you study archaeology and epigraphy, a lot of times a ruler will go back and actually have the name of a previous
Correct.
ruler literally chiseled out. It happens in Egypt when you see the statues, but the inscriptions and the name are gone.
And I think it's an interesting thing we're dealing with now with all these Confederate monuments, for instance. And, you know, I support that because I don't think we should forget the history. And this goes back to the question about that. But one doesn't have to honor them with public monuments. It's a different thing between saying we're going to study the history and we're going to honor them. But name is a very, so you'll see this whole issue of naming and names and what are our names, very important.
So we've exhausted the
Okay.
chat and the hands. If you wanted to do another line.
Yeah,
Or
let's do another line.
okay, 11. Did it switch? Do you see 11
Not
on
yet,
top?
no.
Okay, let me reshare. Now?
Yes.
ויבטחו בך יודעי שמך, כי לא עזבת דורשך, אדוני.
Those who know your name trust you, for you do not abandon those who turn to you, O Lord. So again, the vav at the beginning of this verse is not and, but it is an emphatic distinction from those first few verses. Vicha, in you, Yodea Shemecha, know your name. Shem, here's the word for Shemcha, your name, comma. Ki lo azavta, you do not abandon. This is a very famous word because this is there's a different psalm that Jesus quotes according to the New Testament on the cross where he says, Lama azavtani, why have you abandoned me? And here is this word azavta, you abandoned those dorshecha who seek you out or search for you or something toward you. So, oh Lord. Okay, let's do one more.
Just one question.
Oh, sorry.
That one line appears in the morning liturgy, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because sometimes it's the whole psalm, and sometimes there are places in the liturgy where there are lines taken.
There's tons of individual lines, and it's true for the daily prayers, and in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, there are just lines taken from the Psalms all over, just one line's here, one line there. And there are some Sidurim which are great at citations. You'll notice that I was very insistent in the CBST Sidur that we cite where the actual, when a prayer is taking from multiple sources, at the end of the prayer, we indicate where it's from. So some Sidurs do that and some don't. So the first word, by the way, maybe we'll end with this of the time. The bet tet chet, the vayiv techu, bet bitachon is security. A bor bitachon is the holes throughout Israel. You'll find they're called bor bitachon, where you would throw a bomb or a suspected object of suspicion into it so it could explode without hurting anybody. And it's a wonderful word. Betach means definitely or for sure in Hebrew. And it also has this deeper sense of security, to trust somebody, to have deep security in somebody. I love that word actually. All right, so I think that's all we're going to be able to do today, right? We can't do another one, Harold?
We can do, no, we can't. Time.
Okay. All right, so we pick up with 12 tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, no, tomorrow's Monday.
Friday. So in just a brief housekeeping note before we get played out by Adria, we are not yet even on translations. I don't know when we will go to offerings for Psalm 9, but feel free if the muse strikes you to start submitting them, and we will give you, the deadline will be sometime earlier next week, but if inspiration comes, let it come and send your offering on to Annika. And an early Shabbat Shalom for everybody. I will not be able to see. And I will be away next week. I may be here for a day or two. Yael is stepping in and Babette is stepping in. So you are in very good hands.
And I will be here all week next week. So we'll be continuing with this Psalm and hopefully moving through it. There's a lot of rich stuff here. So
and just one more thing. Thank you for everyone who responded to yesterday's email about those 2 weeks when we are Rabbi-less. We will be doing self-led reading of Psalms. I will get back to you with details. And on that note, Adria.
Wow. Thank you so much, Adria. What a gift you
Thank
give
you.
us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Such
Shabbat
nourishment
shalom.
for all of us.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Shalom, shalom, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see everybody at Shabbat services Friday night at 6:30. 6 o'clock is our pre-service thing, and then 9:30 Shabbat morning. See everybody on Shabbos. Good Shabbos. Shabbat shalom.